already knew what I wanted to shoot. The very first wedding I ever shot, in black and white film, I was drawn to the seemingly insignificant moments. I was drawn to the characters, the humor, and the connections. I already knew. But then as soon as you go, it wasn't for us because social media wasn't a thing, but if you're doing it now, as soon as you go on social media, as soon as you have money, mortgages to pay, you can get bogged down, super bogged down in what you're doing and forget what you really truly love about photography.
Welcome to the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson and I'm the founder of SheClicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk with women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. This episode is with Dom Shaw, a former Fujifilm ex-photographer or ambassador who specialises in documentary-style wedding photography and is co-founder of York Place Studios. She's travelled the world shooting street and documentary photography and regularly photographs weddings and families with her trademark style. For Dom, a great photograph doesn't just catch the eye, it grips the heart. Hi Dom, thanks for joining me on the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's great to see you. Now, it was your granddad who introduced you to photography, wasn't it? How did that happen?
Gosh, yeah. Well, it's kind of always been in the family, photography. My mum, she did photography, and then she taught by my granddad, and from there we all just love photography. And then there's Liam, obviously, and it's just been in the family, just taking pictures, just generally, just around. There was always tons and tons of albums around a photograph, and it was always kind of something in the background, I guess. But at first, it felt like my mum was kind of the photographer of the family. My grandpa, actually, he had a beautiful collection of cameras. He was a family solicitor, actually. But his hobby, his love, he actually sadly died before we got into photography in the way that we have. And he would be so proud to know what we've achieved. But he absolutely adored photography. And some of the pictures he's taken kind of blew me away, because I was like, oh, he has the same kind of sentiments of how we shoot. Perhaps it came from my mother, or perhaps it was just natural, but it's clearly a family thing.
Oh, that's lovely. I bet your granddad would be really, really proud. Was your mum a hobbyist photographer or a professional?
Hobby. She was a teacher, but she, again, I think because of my grandpa, it was just in the family, and we've always just taken pictures. I remember the very first picture I officially took, was we went to Tunisia, and I had a little, one of those film cameras, but one of those compact film cameras. And it was blue and it was kind of rubbish, but it was my first proper camera. I wasn't allowed the proper ones my grandpa had, because, they were complicated and had, F numbers and stuff. This one was just a little compact one. But I remember I took a photograph of a lady, and she was molding clay in the corner. I was very, very young. I look at the pictures now. Wow, yeah, it was literally, I was probably 5 or 6, and it was,
wow.
But I remember taking it because it was the first time that I'd consciously taken a photograph. I consciously gone, this is interesting, this is something that I want to document, aside from family, and I took it.
Wow, you were about 5 years ahead of me, because the photograph I remember taking, I would have been about 10, so if you were doing it about 5, you're streets ahead, so yes.
It was just something that we really loved. And then when I went to college and university, it was just inevitable, because it was only when I went to college that I started doing it in the darkroom. And then my parents, bless them, set up me a darkroom in the house. So I used to go up into the attic and develop the films upstairs in my family house as well. So I had I went to college and I had it. And then when I went home, I also was developing and printing and developing my own negs. And it was so exciting and so exhilarating. And I remember the very first time the picture developed in the developer, and I was like, oh wow, I am hooked, really, really hooked. And then I've never looked back.
What a bonus to have a darkroom in your attic, because the big pain of having a darkroom at home generally was it was in the bathroom, and then you had to spend ages screening off the windows and making it dark. And then, of course, you get all that done, and then someone's hammering on the door saying, I need to come in.
Exactly. No, this was in the attic, and I've still got the enlarger. And my parents recently moved, and the enlarger is still in the attic.
Oh, that's fantastic. And was it always documentary photography for you?
Yes. Yeah, that was what I naturally kind of was drawn to. When I first started, it was I just felt kind of feel much less now, but very, very kind of awkward, kind of like directing people. It just felt so much more natural to me to photograph them in a documentary way. I remember I did my first wedding when I was 16. I was 16 years old, and I was doing, so there was a main photographer, but my mum's friend had said, "Oh, can you come along and take some pictures? I know you're into it and you're at college." So I went along with my film camera, all in black and white, and I shot it, and I was interested in all the little human interactions that were happening and all the real story, if you will, like, so he was photographing people, I remember vividly, under a tree, and he was doing all the groups, and I was like, oh, it's a bit boring. I was like, but round over here, there's an actual real story going on with there was some flower girls and they were playing around with the dad. And I was like, I'm much more drawn to that than I ever was to the groups. So for me, I was just like, yes, I want to photograph it in a natural, candid, real way. I don't like being in front of the camera. I have done it. I think it's a really good thing to do, is to get yourself in front of the camera and be aware of what it's like, particularly if you're going to do portraits and groups, but just in general, it's a good experience. But it's not my thing to do. So the idea of capturing what was going on outside of the main beats, the main moments, attracted me.
Yeah. And rather than having those posed moments, and if you take just a fraction too long, it all starts to get a bit staid. You're photographing spontaneity, and it's always going to be, of the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be real. It's going to show the true relationships between the people. And I'm really interested in that. And when I was little, I was really drawn to the little moments, whether it was a TV show or a book or just family life. I was always drawn to, and so was Liam. We're brother and sister, and we obviously had the same upbringing. And we were both drawn to the little tiny moments that were happening, the seemingly insignificant moments of life, as opposed to the big moments, like, birthday parties and all that. It wasn't the blowing out the candles. It was the little tiny things that were happening, that, maybe my mum was cooking something in the kitchen, and that kind of, I'd like to bottle that as opposed to like the big things that were happening.
Yeah, because when you think about various events in your life, often it's those little moments that really kind of make it special for you. Because with a birthday party, like you say, there's someone's going to blow out the cake, there's going to be some presents, there might be past the parcel. They're kind of expected, but then it's the other things that make it special.
Yeah, when, like, I remember my grandma, and like, I don't remember like the big things that happened. I don't even really remember it at my birthday parties, but I remember sitting on the couch and her giving me an animal bar, and us watching, Wimbledon together. We're just like little and cuddled up on the sofa, and and the smell of her, just little small things about her, as opposed to like the big event. And even to the case of, like they would give you a big present. I don't remember what the big present was, but I remember how I felt being around them.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Well, I was going to ask you, when did you realise that photography could be your career? But it sounds like it was always going to be your career.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I'm also into music. I used to do a lot of singing. I play the clarinet. I play the saxophone, the tenor saxophone. So I do love music. I love creativity just in general. And when I was little, by the time I could read, and I read quite early, I was always searching for my career. Like, it was like the thing I wanted to do, and so I was always searching for it. And I love to write as well, and I was like, oh, maybe I could be a writer. And it was always in that creative. I never considered anything outside of creativity. So for me, I was just searching for the creativity. And then when I found photography, when I really, really found it, was when I in the darkroom when I was at college. That when I was like, oh, this is it. And I had like a spark of like, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be my career. And because I'd been searching for it for so long throughout my entire school life and before, it was a really kind of strange little kid, like looking for her career. But I just wanted, I guess there was part of me that knew that when you, you do a lot of work, a lot of our time is spent doing our job. And so I wasn't looking for the money side. I was just looking for this thing that I was going to enjoy the most, that I was going to have, because it was going to take up so much of my time. Why not it be something that I truly loved? Funny enough, my husband's the same. He was also doing the same. Funny little kids that we were. He did sound and lighting, and we were both, and Liam as well. He was very much into illustration and graphics, So we were all searching for our creative path before photography and videography for my husband kind of found us.
And you realised that you photography was your thing. What made you go to wedding photography rather than be, say, a reportage photographer, a documentary photographer, or a news reporter?
It's a really good question. So I was actually doing a fine art photography degree in Sunderland, and I was really enjoying it. I used to go to the library and I used to get involved in all the books, and I was like, oh, looking at Martin Parr and how he grew yet, and I was like, wow, these are so great, and I loved it, and I thought I was going to do more of a fine art photography kind of career, but I did a wedding, so I'd done the one when I was 16, and I really enjoyed that. But then I did another wedding, and I was like, okay, there's more to this. Is like sanctioned street photography. I can go out and I can take pictures of people, and also wedding photography really matters. And I do like photographing on the street, but there's something about wedding photography is that these photographs really matter to people, and for me, photographs really matter. And and as I said, like all my childhood, my mom had all these beautiful big albums of photographs, and I wanted to have beautiful big albums of photographs for people to be able to give them, not just things on the street, or any kind of fine art photography really. I just wanted something that really, really mattered, and I loved it. I mean, we got the studio, and I also did at first, when we first got the studio, it was kind of, to be honest, about paying the bills at first, because I was 21 when I got the studio, and so I was just trying to make money the best we could. We tried everything as well. We were doing like portraits, we were doing jewelry, we were doing still, just little still lifey things, anything that we could get our little paws on. But we started doing the weddings, and at first, even though I had this background of fine art photography and documentary and reportage and what I really loved, because all of a sudden I had this heavy weight of a mortgage to pay for the first time in my life, basically, because I've been at university before then. So when I had that kind of heavy weight on me, I started to go, okay, what does the couples want? What do the clients want? How can I serve them? So I ended up doing all the portraits and all the groups, and we were successful. Like, we enjoyed it, but it was just about getting them done. And then we started to like develop our style and think, oh, maybe we could not use flash. And again, still playing around. But for us, it was just, we were doing so many weddings, for me anyway, like 50, 60 weddings a year, as well as the studio stuff. It was a lot. And I said to Liam, I feel like and I was, in my 20s, I was like, I feel like I'm a ghost. I feel like I'm going, and I am going to a wedding and watching other people live, and I'm just doing what I have to do to get what they want, serve the couples. And I was like, but, throughout my career, I'd always wanted something that I've just enjoyed. And I was like, this isn't quite right now. So we talked about it, and we decided to, one, reduce the weddings down, and two, really figure out what we really, really loved about photography. And then I went back to my roots. So I stopped thinking about things in a more commercial way. And I was like, well, what did I really love? And what did Liam really love? And was like, well, creativity. We loved like street photography. So we went back out on the streets and we started shooting street photography again. And that started bleeding into our work. And then we started getting couples that connected with what we did. And that made us very happy.
I bet. Yeah, that's fantastic. So you tried lots of things, because one of the things business people sometimes do, or are often advised to do, is to sit down and write a business plan. But when you're starting out, particularly with something creative like photography, how do you know what you want to do and where that will take you and what response you're going to get? So trying lots of different things and then honing it down. And then it sounds like you sort of came up with a plan. Let's pare back the number of weddings. Let's do this documentary style, that kind of thing. That's when you sort of started to cement what you do.
Yes. So at first, we were like looking at photographers, and we were thinking, okay, so what is going on in the kind of the documentary photography kind of the side? And I was like, okay, it was a lot of black and white, and it's quite stoic. And I was like, I love black and white documentary photography. I do. I love black and white documentary wedding photography, but it's not really me, and it's not really Liam. We're kind of a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, a bit more humorous, and fun, I guess. So we were like, you know what, we're going to shoot mostly colour. We set up a set of rules. or a set of rules that we were like, okay, we're going to follow these rules too, because these are things that we truly loved. So I guess it was kind of like a business plan, but it wasn't, because it was just creativity. It was just fun. And I remember we had this, it was a book by the Beatles called Let It Be. And we looked at the colours in that and we were like, oh, this is beautiful. And this was all colour. We were like, this is beautiful. This lives. This feels like it's very old now, but it feels authentic, and it feels of the time because it hasn't aged, because it's film. And we're like, okay, so we want to do something that's very, very stripped back. We want it to feel like that it's just, there's no over retouching. There's no over complications to the edit. And we want it to be, we're not going to Photoshop things to make them quote unquote perfect. We're going to allow the pictures to have them, and basically we're going to compose. So everything in the frame is going to be important, and that is going to be, and composition is the language of storytelling. So therefore, if we show through the composition the story we want to tell, then we'll be able to give the couples an image that hopefully they'll really resonate with, So it won't just be like, oh, I like this. It'll be like, oh, wow. Like, I really want them to feel it.
Please excuse this interruption. This podcast is supported by Fujifilm, one of the best-known photography brands in the world. Fujifilm's award-winning X-series and GFX system cameras and lenses are suitable for all types of photographers and videographers. Each has been developed utilising experience gained from more than 90 years in the industry, featuring the unique film simulation modes that everybody knows and loves. Okay, let's get back to the show. I love the idea of writing down rules, coming up with a strategy that you're going to follow so that you always produce the work that you want and that keeps you interested.
Well, because there was two of us as well, we wanted to keep everything consistent. So we didn't want it to be like, we didn't need a third photographer in this mix. So the rules were kind of like, we wanted to be colour. We wanted to have no flash because we wanted to everything feel like it's in the same world. And we loved street photography, and we loved films that didn't, that used the colours of the room. We like things to be very clean. So in terms of composition, so no heads on heads. It was very, these are rules that we still keep to this day. So all our imagery, you can draw around it, and you'll be able to, each person has got a slight separation about it. And we like pictures that are also kind of beautiful documentary. So even when it's slightly more black humor, it was still beautifully shot. That was kind of one of the things we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that there was as little as possible without double chins, because we have this thing about documentary doesn't, it can be beautiful. And there was a time when it was so portraits were beautiful and documentary was more raw and real. And that's great, but that's not what we loved. We loved it to be beautiful. We wanted people to put them on the wall as pieces of art. And we felt like if it was something that was quite more vulgar, I guess, then it wouldn't be something they put on the wall. So for us, the sentimentals of portraits, of making sure that no double chin and how they're shot, yes, you can do that in a portrait, but you can also do it in documentary. Just depends on where you stand to how you can create those pictures. And that was another one of our rules. So I'm sure there was others, but we kept very carefully to these rules, and that helped us develop our style.
That's a really good point, actually, about wanting to, make people look beautiful, because at the end of the day, they are your clients, and you may take the most hilarious picture that everybody, apart from the people in it, really like, and they don't like it because they look really ugly, or, they think they look wrinkly or something like that. But they are the clients, so you have to please them still.
Yeah, well, we never want to take anything that's unkind. So even when the image has perhaps an element that could be taking the mickey out of the person, we don't want to take the mickey out of the person. We want to take the mickey out of the situation. So if it is something like that, then we will cover their faces. We will cover their eyes. We will hide them. So it becomes about, for instance, there's this photograph of someone falling back off a bench and their legs up in the air. Now, you could have done a photograph where you could have, she fell off. It was hilarious. And there was all kinds of ways of shooting that to make it look like, her face in it. And, she'd been all red in the face and she'd been drinking and da-da-da. And they were having a play fight, these two people. It was hilarious. And you could do those, but the way of shooting without showing a face meant that this image was universal, and it meant it wasn't poking fun at her. I mean, actually, she ended up commenting on the photograph on our Instagram and going, "That's me. That's great." If she feels happy to do that. But would she have commented if she could have seen her face and she felt like it was an unkind photograph? Probably not.
Yeah, that's a really good distinction, I think. The situation rather than the person is what you need to be poking fun at. So what made you decide to work with your brother?
Well, I mean, I've always looked up to him. Like, I mean, he's literally older than me. But also just he's always had such a creative mind at every stage when he was even younger. Like all the illustrations that he did, I was just always kind of like, wow. And I remember him saying to me, I was like, wow, these drawings are amazing, Liam. And he was like, well, and I was like, they really are. And he was like, well, and I was like, but you're getting all these amazing grades and, the best in the class. And he said to me, it's not about being best in the class. There's a much bigger world out there. You want to be the best in the world. And I was like, whoa, I never thought about it like that. I was like, it's not just about being the best in the class. It's about being the best you can possibly be. And, it's not just a small, I guess I was thinking small fry. And he opened my mind up to the fact that the whole world was an option. I mean, it was before kind of, the internet really. So to me, I just wasn't thinking as big as he was. He was comparing himself to the best. And that little bit of information was just mind blowing to me, that I had to compare myself to the very best photographers in the world, not, my peers. So I've always admired him. And then we did a project when I was at university. And we really enjoyed working together. And at the end of it, the tutor just put wonderful work. It was illustration work as well, which was basically illustration and photography together and creativity. And he was like, wonderful work. You guys are a fantastic partnership. You should consider working together. And I didn't think anything of it because, I was at university and things. But when the studio came up, I thought, oh, Liam, how do you feel about working together and collaborating? And then he said yes, and that's how it happened. But it wasn't a plan. It just sort of happened. But it was a wonderful thing to happen together and to be able to figure out how we shoot and what we want to achieve and everything we've done. I can't imagine doing it without him. It's a really perfect partnership, to be honest. And people always say, do we argue? I say, no, we don't. And like if at any point we're discussing a photograph and we're like, oh, should this be in our main gallery? And one of us is, and if neither of us are passionate about it, then it's not going in. And if one of us is really, really passionate, then one will listen. But most of the time, like 99 times out of 100, it will be that we just agree.
You keep each other on your toes. But when you're actually shooting, do you ever sort of look at each other and you kind of get the gist, what you're doing is great. I need to go and do something else, or he'll go like that. And I'll go and photograph that.
Yeah, so we have kind of, considering we're not twins, we have kind of a twinny ability. I think because we've obviously known each other all our lives, worked together for nearly 20 years now. We can just give each other a look or a little tiny hand gesture and we'll know, we'll know. And I never go and shoot what Liam is photographing and vice versa. Because for us, we don't say photography by Dominique, we don't say photography by Liam. There's no ego. We're just really happy that one person gets the picture. In the book, we didn't say this picture's by this person. It doesn't matter, it's just sometimes one of us, mostly me, will take the sacrifice of doing groups or portraits to ensure the documentary continues. And I'm just really happy that we have those pictures and him vice versa. So we don't have that kind of ego or I want the picture. It's just never been that way. It's just always about growing the brand together.
Now, you mentioned in passing your book that you and Liam have written, Is This Something?, which is a guide to capturing unposed images at a wedding. What led you to write that?
Well, it was COVID times and we were obviously separated from each other, but we were still talking online because Liam and I talk all the time. Even when we haven't got a project, we're still talking. We've always found that the best time for us, in creating, is when we're together. That's what we're doing this week. We're together creating again, and we'll have long conversations. So it was COVID. We were kind of in that kind of feeling of, I really miss shooting. I really miss photography. All the things that we'd written, all the workshops, all the talks we'd done in different countries, we were just reminiscing. And we were like, wow, we've really said some stuff. Wouldn't it be cool if we put it in a book? And we were like, well, we have time. let's start. So we did that for the year, and then we continued and just kept going until it was written. And it started off as being kind of a romantic set of kind of like, these are all the beautiful lines that we've written, because there's some really gorgeous stuff. Like, I'm really proud that in our book, there's only like a couple of things that are not our quotes. We write everything. So we kind of had put this together, and then we started to realize, what, this would be really useful for other photographers, because, wedding photography is really hard. It's a really hard thing to do, so to have kind of like a blueprint of how you can shoot a wedding as well. It goes from like the getting ready all the way to the first dance and beyond. So you can read it that way, or you can just dip in and out. You can just dip in and out of it. And you've got these lovely contact sheets as well. Wedding photography is so difficult. We wanted to give people an opportunity to be able to read something that hopefully will help them. And documentary in general, people assume that you just kind of come across a photograph and that you've got lucky. But you can't do that with documentary, and you can't do that with the style that we do, because you can't get that lucky. You have to do it consistently throughout the day. So there's only a couple of times in our entire career that we've looked upon a photograph, and it's just been there. Most of the time, you've got to find the position. You've got to sense the chemistry. You've got to sense spontaneity, and then you've got to get into position. You cannot just see something from a distance and go click, because that's when the composition isn't right. So the book is hopefully a way of just helping people. That's all we wanted to do. Help and inspire and give people kind of the opportunity to look through something that will like understand that how the process is and how our mind was working. And because there's contact sheets, you can hopefully see, because we love contact sheets. I grew up literally with contact sheets. Like, that was what we used to do. We used to develop the contact sheet before you chose your print. So and I thought it was great because you could see the mindset of the photographer. And so that's what we did with ours. We created contact sheets so people could see the mindset of how we were taking the images.
You've written 300 pages about it in your book, but what would be your top tip, your top advice for anyone thinking about starting in documentary style wedding photography?
Well, I think, first of all, you just got to get out and start shooting. Like, that is absolutely key. Get out, start shooting. Feel when you're around, like, what do you want to shoot? Because this is the really interesting thing about, photography in general, but documentary. You would put like, so we've got a room. We've got a bunch of photographers, and they've all got the same camera, all got the same lens. So everything's the same consistency. What do you go and shoot? What is the thing that piques your interest? That's why the book is called Is This Something? It's like, is this a moment? Is this something I can capture? And that would be my biggest advice, is find what you're drawn to, because that is the key. Because that's what I love about photography, because it's just a box. And instead of us all going and photographing the same thing, we will all find humor, feel affection, feel love for something different in the room. And that is what is great. So you've got to find yourself. And I think you can't find yourself instantly. You've got to work at it and understand that it's a process. It was a very long process for me and Liam about what we enjoyed. And sometimes you already know how you want to shoot. You've only forgotten. So what made you pick up that camera in the first place? And I think that's really important. What made you pick up the camera? Why? I look back and what did the initial picture, it was like, okay, so it's the woman in the clay, because I was interested in like human behavior and connections. And the same when I was at the wedding, if I look back at my career when I first started, I already knew what I wanted to shoot. The very first wedding I ever shot, in black and white film, I was drawn to the seemingly insignificant moments. I was drawn to the characters, the humor, and the connections. I already knew. But then as soon as you go, it wasn't for us because social media wasn't a thing, but if you're doing it now, as soon as you go on social media, as soon as you have money, mortgages to pay, you can get super bogged down in what you're doing, and forget what you really truly love about photography. And what I truly really loved about photography was there, in the books. I was going, and that's another reason why we wrote the book, is because we love books, and that's how we learnt. And you can pore over the photographs and really get involved in them. I think that's a really great thing. And the thing about books as well is that you can read something when you first start in your career. So this is another thing what we love about, hopefully people love about the book, is that they can read it and they can learn, and they're going to be like, wow, like I've on an initial level, I've learned X about the book. I've learned the beginnings of my documentary. But then you read it again in a few years and you're like, oh, wow, okay, there's much more to this than I realized. And then you go back in over 5 years' time and you read it again. And you're like, oh, right, okay, there was other things that I couldn't quite understand at this time, that have clicked. And that's what I found when I was reading books when I was younger. And when I was looking and poring over books, you appreciate them on different levels at different times of your career.
So the book's called Is This Something? Where can people find it if they'd like to buy it?
So currently we have it online on our website, seeminglyinsignificant.com. And also it is available at Fujifilm's House of Photography. They have a small selection left, and you can just go upstairs and you can find them there. We sell the book internationally, 32 countries now, which is pretty crazy. And so, yeah, we've literally have gone today to Singapore and America. And so we are overwhelmed with like the fact that people are buying it from all over the world. It's amazing and incredible. And I never get tired of seeing people send me, the lovely things that they write about how it just gave them some confidence. And, some of them were like, oh, I never thought of it that way, which is just a wonderful way. Or, it felt like it gave me permission to do something the way I wanted to do. Because it's not the how to shoot like York Place Studios. It is how to create documentary images. And that can be any way you want. And then there's inspiration involved in that. But at the same time, it is not the blueprint of York Place Studios. It's the blueprint, I guess, of creating documentary images and how to you're not just getting lucky. That's the most important thing, is to create things on a consistent basis. And at every point when you get kind of like, it's difficult, you get kind of bogged down, and like everyone does it, you're at a wedding and you've done the ceremony, you've done the getting ready, you've actually been shooting for many, many hours before it's the reception, and you've had to do the groups. And then there's this window of time to do the reception, which we adore. We love the window of time for the reception, but that's because that's our favorite thing to do. And we know how to get images. But at the same time, it's so difficult to keep that energy, that mindset. And so to give people some help and to help them to get through and to get past the kind of I'm stuck, Yeah, and that's very, very, and a lot of people take the book to weddings, and then in the kind of the lunch break, they'll go and then they'll flick through and they'll find, because if they want some inspiration on juxtapositions, they'll go through and they're like, okay, that's just reignited my brain. Or if they genuinely just need a little bit of a little bit of inspiration shot, they just need that to be like, okay, I'm ready again, particularly when you work on your own. Liam and I bring the inspiration and give the shot of energy to each other, but it must be so hard. I now have shot weddings on my own during COVID, and it's harder to like keep going, keep that mindset. Don't be looking at the back of your camera, worrying and thinking, did I get it? Because forget it, move on. And if you did get it and you're like, I'm the dog, I got this great picture. That also, whilst you're just being like, yay, I got this picture, so many photographs will have passed by. So try and stay in the moment and stay shooting. And that way, when you finish, you can look through them. But otherwise, all it will do is give you too much like looking at the photograph, or it will really bum you out and you'll be just like, oh, and you'll be worrying about it. And the most important thing in wedding photography is just to stay present and keep shooting, particularly with documentary.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And congratulations on the book. It sounds fantastic. I think that's a really good point to go to 6 from SheClicks. So I've got 10 questions from SheClickers, and I'd like you to answer 6 questions by picking numbers from 1 to 10, please. So could I have your first number, please?
5, please.
Number 5. When do you know when a shot has grabbed you by the heart? As you take it, when you look at the back of the camera, or once you get it downloaded? That question's from Liz.
Oh, thank you, Liz. That's an awesome question. Love it. Glad I picked you. As I was just saying, I don't look at the back of the camera, but there is something that happens like when you get a picture that you really, really, truly know is great. You get like this like spark of like energy, and it's almost like, you're like, oh, that was something, that was good. It's the is this something, and you're like, yes, yes, that definitely was. And that is the moment, I think, when you realize. But then I don't look at it until later on in the camera, because that little spark of energy that you get, that little oof, that was something. I think that was a really good picture. Then carry that energy, that love for that photograph through, and then you'll get more pictures. I remember me and Liam were shooting street photography in Japan, and we were having a bit of a rough morning. We were like, the thing about street photography when you're a wedding photographer is that if you don't get like a couple of pictures in the morning, you're just really annoyed, because you like, that's not how it works in wedding photography. You've got to get pictures all the time. So what's going on? So we had a little break, and we had a little coffee, and then we walked out of the coffee shop, and we were like, there's pictures everywhere. So we just need that energy boost. So use that energy boost from feeling that you got that picture to take more pictures.
Okay, top tip. Right, your second number, please.
2.
Number 2, your love of photography started early. What is the first photograph you remember seeing? That's another one from Liz, actually. And you touched on, you remember the first image you photographed.
Yeah, the first image I ever saw. Wow. Well, I mean, I loved, and my daughter, actually, bless her, is the same. I just love anything that's visual. And I can see her at the moment, and she's like, the programs that she's watching, or the books that she's seeing, like anything that's really, really colorful and visual and funny, she's connecting with. And I'm like, I really see her like a little mini me. And I'm like, this is so cool, because I remember doing this myself. But like posters, anything graphical, I was like, wow. Vinyls, my mum and dad had a beautiful collection of vinyls. That was something. The photographs on there, I can't think of a specific image, but just generally kind of like colorful, weird, like images like that. I remember my grandpa had some wonderful photographs as well. One of my grandma that was so cool. It was like a portrait image of her. She was wearing glasses, and it was just blue sky behind, and it was just a really interesting shot of her. And I remember thinking, oh, that's how he sees her. That's lovely. And I think that is about photography, is like you get to show people how you see them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so your third number, please.
1.
Number 1, where in the world would you most like to photograph on the street? That question's from Janina.
Wow, I've done some really great ones. I'm so fortunate. I mean, I love Japan. That was amazing. Cuba was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Where do I want to go? That's really tough. I mean, in terms of maybe Vietnam, like, yeah, I'm really open to anywhere, actually. Like, because I've done like the big ones that I wanted to do. Like, Japan was a bit of a dream. Yeah. Like, who doesn't want to go to Electric City? It's so good. I would really recommend it. Like, it is just like the colors and kind of the oddities. Because the thing about shooting locally is that it's very easy to just kind of like think that everything is normal and boring. Like, you want to see it through kind of a child's eyes and be like, oh wow, this is really, really cool. And I'm like doing that at the moment with Maisie. I can see that she's seeing everything is interesting. Like, we go to the park and she's like, whoa, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that kind of like, oh wow, that's so good, is like when you go to a foreign country, when you go to like Japan or you go to Cuba, you're like, whoa, this is a different kind of place. And at first, everything's magical. Actually, this is in the book. Everything's magical. And then you kind of you sort of getting normalized to it. And that's something that we as photographers need to not get normalized. We want to kind of feel like the kind of the absurdity of life, like and enjoy that. So you can shoot anywhere, and I oh, there's also somewhere in Ireland I want to go and shoot. I can't remember where the place was, but that sounded really, really fun as well. So there isn't anywhere that's kind of like I'm absolutely like I must go and shoot there, because I've done some of my favorites. I also went to Sri Lanka. That was extraordinary, going to the marketplace and how everyone was and what they were doing. It was just really interesting. But I would say Vietnam as an answer of somewhere that I'm hoping to go as soon as I can.
Okay. Yeah, I know someone who's just been, actually, and she had a fantastic time. So recommend it. Your fourth number, please.
10.
Number 10, when time is precious during an event and you see there's an opportunity for a great shot, but you have to wait for the right thing to happen in the frame, how do you judge the time you can invest in that shot? It's a great question.
Amazing question. This is something that we talk about in the book because there is different. It depends on how long, like in terms of you can't give yourself too much time for something if there's loads of things going on. But if it's like the reception and things have slowed down, then you can give longer periods of time to it, which is something that we always think about. But it's like, and also, which is like the risk and reward kind of thing. How good do you think the photograph is going to be? So I am, myself and Liam, we're not necessarily kind of fishers, in photography, in wedding photography, it's actually really difficult to be a fisher because you don't have that much time. In street, you can wait all day, you can sit, you can camp out, you can be like, I am going to wait for days until this and this matches up. But for us, the joy and spontaneity of photography is what I really love. So I like it to be spontaneous. So I kind of go hunting out images. So I don't wait very long. I will kind of give it a small amount of time because I enjoy kind of the hunt. I enjoy the hunt of the photograph. I enjoy and I can make something work from just a composition. So it doesn't have to have a big moment. Me and Liam were actually having this conversation the other day, and it was like, he was talking about, it was like, moment is the most important thing. And I was like, I really like an image that just has no big moments at all. Barely anything happening really, but just a lovely flow to the image. Like it's a piece of art. I really like that. It doesn't have to have anything big in it. So for me, that can be created without needing to wait too long because it's just the tiny little things that are happening. It's also really fun when something wild happens in front of you. And you're able to compose it. You're literally standing in the right place. You've composed it roughly, and you're like, "Oh, this is going to work." And then something bigger happens. That's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, it is funny. Sometimes you're saying about in your street, you can wait for like someone to walk into the frame or something like that. And then I've been out with SheClickers, and you know that you need a person in that frame. So, can you just walk in? And it's not the same because you've contrived it, but it's also hilarious because they're doing it. And inevitably they try and do a funny walk or, they do something else. So it turns into a slightly different thing. And then suddenly somebody does walk into the frame and then you've got that moment, and a person who was not part of the group. And then that becomes more special. But the whole event is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for photographing, when you falsify something, it doesn't have the same magic. For me,
No.
Like, I just don't like it. Like, I understand, and I know it shouldn't, but it sort of ruins pictures for me. Like, if someone tells me, oh, that was fake, I was like, oh, like, because I love things that are real. And if they're not perfect, or if they are perfect and it's real, do you know what I mean? Like, that is just, it's like having, like, we said this in the book, but it's the difference between like an animal in the wild and an animal in the zoo. It's still the same animal, but it's a completely different experience. It makes you, like, how you feel so much more when you see the animal in the wild. I remember in Sri Lanka, we went to see elephants in oh my God, it was so amazing. And like, they were like running past us and it was raining and it was like, wow, this is cool. And then you see one in the zoo and, they're just kind of like standing there and it's just not the same experience at all. And that's how I feel about photography. It's why I love documentary. I love it to be so real.
Good analogy. All right. So your penultimate number, please.
Where are we up to? 4? Have I done 4?
You haven't? Okay. Was it easier to start a photography business with your brother? Would you have done it solo if he hadn't got involved? That question is from Carmen.
All these questions have been so good. Like, they've really thought about us. I really appreciate it. Yeah, lovely. I actually started to do it on my own in the terms of like the offer of the studio was mine alone, and obviously I was doing photography at university. Liam was doing graphics illustration and partly photography, but it was myself that was going to do it. But I was 21, and it was a big thing, and I don't know, I guess it was just like the mindset of the youth, right? I was like, I can do this alone, but it was actually, I think it was my mom who was like, maybe like Liam, and like Liam was like in between jobs at the time and he was working out what he was going to be doing. And I was like, hey, do you want to do this with me? But I had no idea that working with Liam would be as fulfilling. We'd do so much together, and I can't imagine doing it on my own now. And I know, you know, the whole thing about at the beginning with when I was saying like Liam saw the big picture, like that is Liam, you know, he was never satisfied. We would used to, with the photography at the level that it was, you know, we used to sit there when we were doing our calls together. And that's how we came up with the list. And we were like, he was never satisfied with the image. He was like, no, this. I remember him very clearly going through one of our first calls, and this was a good one. We were proud of this one. We were like, yeah. And he was like, oh, it's all just bullseye. It's all just in the middle. He was like, every image, bullseye, bullseye, bullseye. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, you're right. And now I'm proud to say that I bring stuff to the table too. And I will say something. And what's great is when there's two of you, you learn twice as fast. So he'll tell me something and I'll learn it. And then I'll tell him something and he'll learn it. And then we'll build together. So yeah, I cannot imagine doing it on my own. But yeah, it was actually a consideration that it was going to be on my own. Yeah, the partnership with Liam and what we've achieved and what we've taken and where we've been and everything, the fact that the book is selling internationally, that's because of us both. So I'm, I can't imagine doing that on my own now.
Lovely. Well, that's great. So it's your final question, please.
9.
Number 9. What is your go-to lens and camera combination for a documentary wedding shoot? And several people asked that.
Oh, okay. Well, I tend to use the 23 1.4, which is equivalent of like, you know, a 35. I think it's nice though to mix it up. Like that is what I 95% of the time use, because it's how we see, you know, when you put the screen up, it's how we see, it's how I like to shoot, and it feels really comfortable to me. But actually, it's really good to get out of your comfort zone at times. And some of the images that we've taken that are in the book are like the 50 1.0, which you wouldn't think was necessarily a lens that would work with the way that we shoot. But that's actually not true. You can shoot, you know, the way we shoot, it could be portrait, it can be landscape, it can be a different lens. It's the set of rules and the aesthetic and the vision which needs to be, and the connections to the photography that need to be correct. In actual fact, you can do it on any lens. Whatever feels right for you, whatever feels good for one, the picture, and two, just for shooting in general. But I would say the 23 is like the main one. However, I am totally in love with the X100 VI. So that is obviously a fixed lens on it. And I've been shooting with that as well. And we've actually shot some weddings, obviously not just with that, but alongside. And it's so wonderful to have such a small camera at a wedding. And it's great for street as well.
Yeah, that is a lovely, lovely camera. But which camera do you put your 23mm on?
Currently, the XH2S, but it's a little bit heavy. So we are hoping at some point they might do an X Pro new one so that we could. Of
course.
And because that look.
Hopefully they're listening.
Yeah, you're listening. That would be nice. Because we, a lot of the images that we're taking, well, all the images that we're taking in Cuba, because it was brand new out, and we're taking on the X Pro 2, and that was our favorite camera. So, but the X100 VI is kind of really pushing up there as being one of our favorite cameras. But to have interchangeable lenses on it, yeah, I'd love a new X Pro.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Dom, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been really lovely chatting with you.
Oh, I've really enjoyed it. And thank you so much, SheClickers, for all the questions. Genuinely great questions, really fun to answer. And I appreciate them taking some time to look at me and understand a little bit about what I do. So the questions were really relevant. It was fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Well, you're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to everybody who sent in a question. You'll find links to Dom's website and social media channels in the show notes. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find SheClicks on Facebook, X, Instagram and YouTube if you search for SheClicks Net. So until next time, enjoy your photography.